Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in this amazing, beautiful, wonderful, resting planet of ours. This is Inspired Living Radio here on the OMTimes Radio Network. I'm your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, and thank you for joining me today for a very special episode, a very special podcast, where I'm going to be talking about the great pandemic of the 21st century, but I'm also going to be talking about the great world pause and reset that the planet is going through right now. So if you're listening in, thanks for being one of our inspired listeners all around the globe. I'd love to have you call in to the show to talk about this topic, about COVID-19, this pandemic that is impacting the world, the globe, all of us, even including at my level, where my sister yesterday was taken to the hospital and tested for COVID-19 and now in full isolation. So I can tell you that this is a real thing. Please pay attention to your local governor's news office and or the CDC or the World Health Organization for truthful, accurate data that is rolling out and will continue to spread and continue to grow. Now, I say that with just truthfulness because as a certified healthcare provider, I've been a certified healthcare provider for over 25 years now. I've worked in emergency medicine. I've worked in hospitals. I teach CPR, first aid, and basic life support. And I'm here to tell you today to speak the truth and be honest with you. Stay home, stay healthy. You know, we're now saying instead of, worrying about that you might be infected, I really challenge you to stay home and assume you are infected and change your behavior to avoid transmitting to somebody that you care about, somebody that you love. You may be young and have no symptoms. That's great. But you don't want to take this to other people, your grandparents, your parents, your siblings, and expose them to great risk. And that's what we are looking at with a pandemic. I'm going to be talking today about the history of pandemics. I'm going to be doing a meditation. But I'm also going to bring, Inspired Living Radio is all about bringing positivity, inspiration, encouragement, community, and especially in this time right now, connectivity, as a lot of us find us inside, quarantined, isolated, lockdown, whatever words you want to use. I know here in the state of Washington, where this all started for the United States, was in Seattle. The first case was actually in Seattle, Washington. We're using the language of stay home, stay healthy versus lockdown or shelter in place, which implies, same meaning, but your words do matter in this time. And I would really just challenge you to find truth of what's going on, through social media, through the news outlets. One of the things that I love to go to when I hear something is I go to factcheck.org just to see if that's actually a fact, if that's truth, or if that's a misleading statement. So we're going to be talking about the history of pandemics. I'm going to be doing a meditation with you. Going to just bring some positivity and inspiration to the world, create a place, create a vibration, a ripple effect, if you will, holding space for all of our neighbors all around the globe. I am really just sending my thoughts to Italy, Spain, my friends in the UK. I've got friends and contacts in all three countries, and I've spoken to them. It's pretty dire right now in Spain. Italy just as much. I think Spain just became the number one, beating China for the death mortality rate. UK is going to see more of the same. In the United States, unfortunately, guys, this is a wave that's coming from the United States. It started in Seattle. It's spread to all 50 states. New York is the major hotspot right now. And if you think about it, it's going to move inward like an ocean swell. Back in my days in the Coast Guard, there was something that was taught to me Remember your training. We're going to survive this. This too shall pass. This is not the end of the world. This is the apocalypse. I've had to talk to several people this week to calm them down and say, this too shall pass if you listen to what you're being told to from nature. Nature is letting us know that she needs time to reset. She needs time to pause. And humans, you've been really bad. Humans, you've come in from a place of ego, not eco. Therefore, I need to put you in a timeout. And that's all this is. This is a great timeout. This is a global pause and global reset for all of us. Now, is there going to have ripple effects that cause stuff for our company, jobs lost? Guaranteed. It's already happening right now as I speak. I've got a contact with the unemployment agency here in Washington State, and they're seeing numbers of unemployment not seen since 2008 and the Great Recession, and now starting to push numbers not seen since the Great Depression. So this is real, based on numbers, based on data. So trust your intuition as well. If it feels right, trust that. If it feels wrong, trust that. I'm not going to tell you who to watch and what to watch, but right now there is a lot of truths that aren't being spoken, and that's why I wanted to take today's show to talk about the truths and the accuracy of what I'm seeing at the ground level with my contacts from FEMA, the VA, the unemployment agency, and local emergency colleagues, because I spent many years in that field, guys. I'm a retired firefighter, I'm a retired coastie, and I would tell you if it was different, but it's not. Numbers are going to increase. So please be safe, please stay home, please stay informed accurately. If you want to work with me in the future, please head over to my site, marclainhart.com, internet search the Intuitive Prospector. I would be honored and humbled to work with you with your own spiritual transformations, spiritual healing, and most importantly, your spiritual gold. You can also find me on YouTube through Marc Lainhart, Instagram, Marc Lainhart, or Inspired for Us. You can also find me on Twitter at Marc Lainhart or Inspired for Us, and that's the number 4, Inspired for Us. And what a great time to have that moniker, I guess, for Inspired for Us, because we've been on the air for 5 seasons now, 5 years of Inspired Living Radio, and we've always used that handle. You are the inspired and the inspiration, and if you want to follow us, go over to Inspired for, the number 4 Us, on Twitter and Instagram. And right now, that's really what I'm doing for the planet, for the listeners out there. I'm inspiring you. I'm being inspired for us when other people have a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of worry, a lot of stress. And stress, as we know from a health standpoint, releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which can cause more problems health-wise. I don't want that for you today. I want you to be here in the magic of the moment. Take a deep breath with me, knowing that just like in the Coast Guard, stand by for heavy swells, batten down the hatches, secure all gear. We have a storm ahead of us, and we're going to do it together, just like a crew on a ship. Where, the ship stays afloat by keeping the water out, keeping everything secured, keeping a level head, keeping calm. That's what this is all about, guys. We're going to ride this storm together. There's a saying out there that talks about, to become a butterfly, metamorphosis is necessary. If the caterpillar never went through this process of change, it would never achieve its great destiny and become its most glorious self. We can reach our great destinies by changing what needs to be changed. And there's a lot of truth in that. And I talked about that on my Metaphysical Mocha Monday show over on Facebook, where I'm there Monday mornings, every Monday morning if I can, at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's an inspirational show of 30 minutes, followed by the Healing Cafe, where I do live readings, spiritual chats, and connect to people, inspire people, and encourage people. So if you want to join me on Monday mornings, you got nothing else to do, head on over to the Intuitive Prospector Facebook page. And in my show, I talked about the caterpillar requires a season of isolation to become the butterfly. And that's where we're at, guys. We're in a season of isolation. Great changes are coming for us. There are going to be some trials and tribulations like I spoke about. But I also did a podcast on this very network on January 8th, 2020. You can go back and listen to it through the OMTimes radio archives or over on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, or YouTube. And I talked about this very exact situation, that there was a pandemic coming. I had heard about it in December at my level, so I know that if I knew about it at my levels in December, right after Christmas, I know a lot of other people knew as well, because I don't have a lot of high-profile connections anymore in the government. But I can tell you that I was preparing for this. I've had things in the works preparing for this pandemic, and being prepared. There's that old saying, plan to fail or fail to plan. I don't know where we're at, and for some people that's a failure to plan, failure of leadership, a lot of blame to go around. but we'll tackle that at a future date. But right now, this is coming together and understanding, your training. We survive. Our ancestors have survived, and I just keep having in my mind, remember your training. I think of Yoda when he tells Luke, mind your training, mind all that you have learned. And the 3 words I talked about a lot on that podcast from January 8th was self-mastery, sustainability in many different forms, sustainability for society, for health, sustainability for the planet. But I also talked about a great coming together, because I saw this great coming together, and we are going to do this together. It's just interesting that we're going to do it apart, separately, in isolation, but we have the technology and the reach and the know-how to connect, whether it's through FaceTime or here through OMTimes Radio, whether it's through Zoom, whether it's through Skype. There's lots of platforms out there, and this is also going to create a new industry for us, guys. This is what the bright light ahead that I'm going to be talking about here after we come back from our break. But if you do want to call into the show, the number to call, 202-570-7057. That is the OMTimes Radio call-in line. My producer, Chris, will put you in the waiting room when it's time, a good time to bring you on. If you want to discuss about how you're feeling, what's going on. Don't want to get into political rants. That's not what I'm about. Don't want to get into religious rants. That's not what I'm about. This is about bringing people together. So like I was telling a friend earlier, if you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, put that aside, come together, be a good human being, and have morals, ethics, values, and integrity, because that's what we need right now. Again, if you want to catch the encore show, if you missed the live version, you can catch us over on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Podbean, marklainhart.com, OMTimes Radio Archives, and you can also find me now through Insight Timer. I'd love to have you join me over there, which is thousands of free meditations, lectures, podcasts, and I'm happy to be on that platform as well, bringing positivity, inspiration, and encouragement into our planet. So we're going to go to our first break here shortly, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about the history of pandemics. But I also, just at this moment in time, I just want you to remember the strong words of "this too shall pass." And with anything in life, we all face storms, but it's, the storms that create great sea legs, like we used to say in the Coast Guard. In order to get to the calm sailing, you got to go through the storms, and it's through those storms that you create your what we called sea legs. And we're going to remember our training. We're going to create stronger sea legs for all of us to get through this storm together, because that is how the human consciousness, human love, human species survives, is through together, not apart. And it's just interesting, in the years that I've been doing this radio show, I've seen great diversity, great divide, and what better way for us to come together, unfortunately through this virus, but Mother Nature has a way of protecting herself. And for many months, the people of the earth stood still, and this was a chance to change things for the better, and that's what we're going to do. Mother Nature said, here's a virus, practice, and that's what we're going to do. But we're going to do it together. And what I want to do before we go to break here, I want to talk about the Serenity Prayer. In great trials and tribulations, including my own journey and how I even got into spiritualism, how I even became a medium, even how I became, Best American Psychic 2020 Psychic of the Year. This is not what I saw myself doing, guys. This is not where I thought my work would be. I actually thought I'd be retiring after 20-some years of being a firefighter EMT. But now I know my calling. I know why I'm here. I know why I have this radio show for the last 5 years, and the work that I do spiritually is to encourage you and to inspire you and to keep you positive and keep your chin up and stay connected and stay in love, not fear. Remember, fear is false evidence appearing real, and there's a lot of fear out there right now. So if you're listening to my voice, like I said, I am you. I see you. I do know you. And I'm just holding space for you right now during these difficult times of what we are going through. And I want to just talk about the Serenity Prayer, because it was through these great trials and tribulations of myself, with my own near-death experience, the loss of personal close family members, and always being called to trauma and tragedy in my professional career, was a Serenity Prayer. And it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I always reflect back to those words, because during troubled times during troubled waters, it was always that prayer, whether you're religious or not, whether you're atheist or agnostic or a true believer. It's always brought me comfort to know that I have the courage and I have the wisdom. And it just reminds me of the quote from Sir Winston Churchill, through great trials and tribulations of his own, talked about fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. And that's where we need to be in this time and place of this global pandemic that is impacting millions of people around the planet. We're not going to move into that place of fear. We're going to move into that place of love, and we're going to make courage our decision to move forward together in community. So again, if you have a question for me, if you want, we'll be monitoring the call room. That number again is 202-570-7057. After the break, I'll talk about the history of pandemics, what you can do during isolation to stay positive, to stay productive, to stay motivated, and also how to stay connected during these unprecedented times in our history. And also I'm going to be doing a nice meditation focused on breath work, attitude, and being in the moment. You are listening to Inspired Living Radio. Thanks so much. I appreciate all of you. We'll be back here in 2 minutes.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
Did you know that you have the power to change anything in your life? Did you know you can do so even with the things that you've already decided are impossible to change? Come join me, Venus Castleberg, on Outside the Impossible as I interview people from around the globe that have literally changed the things they thought were impossible to change just by using the amazing tools of Access Consciousness. Now airing Wednesdays 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Do you dare to believe that anything really is possible?
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. So I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
Hey, and welcome back to Inspired Living Radio. I'm your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, coming to you live here in my studio in Seattle, Washington. I hope that you are staying safe. I hope that you are staying healthy. I hope that you are staying home. And I hope that you are staying informed truthfully and accurately, because in these times, this is very important for us to move forward together, but also in isolation. Socrates talks about the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And I know, from my journey that great changes are usually preceded by chaos. And that's where we may find ourselves right now, in uncertainty, times of changing. But I'm going to talk about the history of pandemics. This is nothing new. Pandemics have been around since humans have been around. But one thing I do know is we're here today because we found a way to survive. And if our ancestors can do it, if our relatives can do it from history past, so can you. I think about, at the time of the Second World War, World War I was the Great War, and then we had a Second World War. And during those times, our grandparents and our great-grandparents were literally called to defend the United States against fascism, against a belief that didn't resonate with freedom. And you're asked to be, stay at home and stay in your chair in the comfort of your home and watch Netflix, or get on my YouTube channel and watch some of my YouTube, 320 videos I have out there to catch up. But our grandparents were asked to do great things, great sacrifices, and they stood up. They came to that calling. And you're asked to stay home and to isolate. And I can tell you from just doing my research on pandemics, because I saw this coming, guys. And you can go back to my podcast on January 8th, 2020, where I talked about the great coming together, the sustainability of what's needed for our planet in order to move forward, and also self-mastery, because it's through self-mastery that we begin to transform, like the caterpillar that becomes the butterfly. For those of you that follow my work, you know that I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I was raised with Star Wars. When Star Wars came out in 1977, I was 5 years old and went and saw it 23 times in the movie theater because I was just so awed by this technology and this story and this movie. And I was reading through a great book, The Untethered Soul, The Journey Beyond Yourself by Michael Singer, and he talked about that. When you focus in on something, your consciousness is such a dynamic field of awareness that you have the ability to either narrowly focus or broadly expand. And he talked about when you sit in a movie theater, you forget that you're in a dark, maybe cold space, because your focus is all on that movie. You're drawn into movies. That's why movies are so powerful and profitable, because people want a way to escape. And right now people are looking for a way to escape, and that's where consciousness can really play a big role. Your attitude can play a big role in how you respond. And again, consciousness is a dynamic field of awareness that has the ability to either narrowly focus or broadly expand. And my hope for you during this time is that you will broadly expand, that you'll find a time to surrender to all of this, because by surrendering, knowing that you're not in control of, decisions that are being made at the highest levels of our government, the truths that aren't being spoken, the people that are being impacted, the people that are dying. When I turn on the television every morning now for my damage control report, I look at those numbers. And for some of you listening to this podcast, those are just numbers. But for me, those are people. When I see that there's been over 800 lives lost now, just right now, and we're still early into this thing, those are 800 people's lives that have transitioned into the spirit world. Those are 800 lives just in the United States, not even talking globally, the numbers that will continue to rise with this pandemic. These are people. These are lives. These are souls. These are people that have families. And I just look at that number, and it's just, I have to surrender, that knowing that I can't control what is going on around me, but what I can control is how I respond to things, how I choose to make a ripple effect by holding space, whether through it's this podcast, whether through it's the Healing Cafe, Metaphysical Mocha Mondays, the readings I do, holding space for people to create a ripple effect that sends light out into the world of darkness. And by surrendering, that is a step of evolution. That's knowledge. Education leads us to knowledge. Knowledge leads us to wisdom. Wisdom hopefully leads us to enlightenment. And these are the steps that we're going to need to take together moving forward. But I also talked about during that podcast on January 8th about manifesting. 2020 is a year of great manifesting. In numerology, it's the year of the 4. And the 4 is all about focusing, being a dedicated worker and fixing things that are broke. And I can tell you guys from just, my visions of the bright future ahead is we are going to fix a lot of things that are broken. And starting one with our healthcare, the healthcare system, which has had great debate, and move past the daily political grind of what you see on television. This healthcare debate has been going on since before FDR, before World War II, after the Great Depression. My hope is that we don't go into another Great Depression, but the economy will see a downfall. There's no doubt about it. But through this, by manifesting, by fixing, by being a dedicated worker, we can all come together. We can rise up. I think about the song from Harriet Tubman that just came out. That song, I was listening to it today. I'm going to rise up. I'm going to take my people and cross the river. I'm going to prepare a place for you. I personally believe moving forward, after great trials and tribulations, that we will move into a place of a new industry. We're going to set up an industry to fight pandemics. The globe's going to be more connected than ever before. I'm not going to say that politics won't still be in play and that we won't still have wars and difference of opinions. That's just human nature. That's human consciousness. But it's going to have a different perspective. And I personally believe the planet is already seen, by putting humans in time out, the planet's already seen positive changes. You go to the canals in Venice where the water's crystal clear. I know when I went to Venice, that water wasn't clear at all. You've got dolphins swimming into the channel. You're looking at, I've been following some of the NOAA models from the satellite models showing about pollution, specifically over China. They saw a huge decrease in pollution over the provinces of China when everybody started to isolate. So I personally believe that there can be great benefits to the planet, which is our home, and we need to respect our home by moving into a place of eco versus being in the years and years that we've been from an ego standpoint. And by manifesting in the year of the 4, which this is the year of the 4, we're going to be dedicated workers, we're going to focus, we're going to fix, and we're going to come together to do great transformational things where we can look back at this period and go, you know what, why did we put up with that? Sometimes you have to see, it's the emperor's new clothes, if you will. We're living a reality of the emperor's new clothes. You don't know the story? Go read it, get familiar with that story, because that's what we're living in right now. And people will come together and say, enough, no more. Because the alternative is not where I want to be. That's not where I want to put my focus. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. That's from Richard Bach that talked about that. And right now there's a lot of caterpillars out there that are thinking that this is the end of the world. For those of us that have been on this journey for some time, myself included, over 20 years now, this is spiritual development. This is spiritual preparations for what we're going through. It's remembering your training. It's being strong in, seeing what was to come and living with that. I've been living with this, guys, for many, many months of what's to come, hoping that I was wrong, hoping that the psychic predictions that I was talking about in January would be wrong. I'd rather err on the side of safety and be wrong versus sit here and say, I told you so, because it's not about me telling you so. It's me giving you perspective and visions of what I've seen, but I'm also here today to tell you the perspective and the visions that I see coming after great chaos is great transformation, great change, and great beauty, because the caterpillars will become the butterfly. It's interesting to me because even the politicians at the swamp, I guess is what I'd call it, the people that are making decisions, now they're talking about a digital currency. So that's been interesting to hear those little ripple effects about moving to digital currency versus actual currency. So I think that you'll see some major changes with currency. I think you'll see some major changes with our healthcare facilities and our healthcare network, and how, I've been working for the VA for years, and they have a beautiful model for our veterans. The VA model has been looked at for many, many years after, the wars and our veterans coming back home. Something Abraham Lincoln did, from the start of the Civil War. So, I think that there's great time to manifest, to be creative, and to really start to bring your desires, things that you've been thinking about or holding off on, to surrender, to manifest it, and then to create it. And I always say things are born twice, first in our mind and then what actions we take to bring those out, to bring those forward into our realities. And you can look around where you're sitting right now, wherever you're at in the world, look around. Whatever you see in front of you, That is somebody else's idea. That is somebody's creation that brought it into your reality. I'm looking at the light bulb. I'm thinking about the great contest of bringing light to the United States, between Tesla and the fight between, oh my gosh, I'm losing. I just watched a great movie. It was the Battle of the Currents, alternate current versus direct current. Oh my goodness. And I know his quote because he talks about Edison, Thomas Edison, and Tesla, about Thomas Edison, how much he failed, but all it takes is that one chance to get it right. And I'm just looking at the light bulb that I take for granted to this day, because both him and Tesla brought light to the world. It transformed at the Chicago World Fair, transformed the world to where now you can see it from outer space. So talk about great transformations. Just the light bulb itself was a great transformation. And that's where I think and feel, and I know based on my visions, based on my meditations, that's where we're going, guys. So what can we do during this time of isolations? Because we have a history of pandemics. We know that the Black Plague, also known as the Black Death or the bubonic plague, from 1347 to 1351, killed over 200 million people. But it was also during this time, during the bubonic plague, that Newton sat back because he couldn't go to Cambridge to teach, and came up with calculus, came up with a theory of gravity. Smallpox, in 1520, killed 56 million people. In the 17th century, we had the Great Plagues, which killed about 3 million people in the 1600s. The 18th century Great Plague killed 600,000 in the 1700s. The Cholera 6 outbreak from 1817 to 1923 killed 1 million people. And then we get to what we call the Third Plague, which was known in 1855, which killed 12 million people. Then we get to the Spanish flu and the Russian flu. Now, the Spanish flu is interesting to me, guys, because I started doing my research about pandemics and the history of pandemics. And the Spanish flu, we call it the Spanish flu, but it should be called the Great Influenza Flu, the H1N1 flu. Because the only reason we know it as the Spanish flu today is because Spain was one of the first countries to actually start reporting on the cases, where they actually show that most likely the case came out of Kansas, around the Kansas area, from the army base there when we sent troops to France. But we don't hear about that. We just know it as the Spanish flu because the government of the time, the media of the time, was not reporting accurately and truthfully. And here we are 102 years later, or I guess, 1918 to, so over 100 plus years here we're in the same boat. Government not reporting. We do have a more free media, but it's hard to trust what you hear from the media. So again, use perspective, use discernment, use your intuition to know what's right, to feel what's right. Like I said, I go to factchecks.org all the time just to see what is real, what's not real. And with social media, it's just created more chaos. But again, out of great chaos, comes great, great things. All great changes are preceded by chaos, and I firmly believe that. But I'll tell you what, the Spanish flu, guys, killed 40 to 50 million people. I don't think and feel that COVID-19 is going to kill that many people, but it will kill a lot, and I hope that you're staying home and staying isolated, because the one thing they found that beat this, because the governments didn't do anything, the media wasn't reporting on it. If the media was reporting at the time, they could actually be put in jail by government officials. And that's scary because, from a healthcare provider standpoint, you want to be truthful, you want to be honest, and you always want to err on the side of safety. You always want to have that overreaction versus an underreaction. And I've definitely been overreacting since January, and here we are. But I do feel the COVID-19, when it's all said and done, will kill in the millions. I don't think it'll be that high. Because again, the technology we have, the communications we have, the isolation, if you follow it, can be very beneficial. But the only thing that actually stopped the Spanish flu, or I'm going to call it the Great Influenza Flu, because it's really not the Spanish flu based on history, is isolation. Isolation. The Russian flu in 1889, between 1889 and 1890, killed 1 million. Then we get into modern day, the Asian flu, 1.1 million, Hong Kong flu, 1 million, the swine flu, 200,000, SARS, 770, MERS, 850. And right now, with the novel COVID-19 that started technically here for us was March 15th, 2020, it's ongoing. It's already killed 6.4 thousand. Now that number since that date, and even after you listen to this podcast, those numbers are going up dramatically. They're going to be very moving upward with the virus pandemic explosion. And when it's all said and done, it will have killed a lot of people, and killed people unnecessarily, sadly, because of lack of leadership, lack of communications, truthful communications, and that breaks my heart. But we can't control that. We're not in charge of that. We can't, all we can do is stay in control. And that leads me to, what Yoda reminds us of. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. And, there'll be plenty of time for blame and pointing fingers, but right now this is the time during the great pandemic of the 21st century that we come together as one. We put our differences aside, we put our politics aside, and we start thinking about life and the value of life and how important life is. And when we come back from our second break here, I'm going to lead us into just a nice meditation to focus on attitude, the magic in the moment, some breath work, and then I'll finish off with some tips to help you during a time of great isolation on how to be productive, motivated, inspired, encouraged, and most importantly, staying connected. Remember, guys, you are the inspired and the inspiration. So be inspired, inspire others, and definitely inspire before we expire. Back in 2 minutes.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Death Row Dogs Rescue is a 100% all-volunteer, no-kill rescue 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are run solely by volunteers who dedicate their time and resources for the past 30 years to rescuing homeless pets from the streets in Los Angeles and surrounding areas, and from city and county animal shelters who are on death row, often moments away from being euthanized. We provide housing, medical care, and training to these neglected, abused, and often severely injured animals. Donate now, save a life, and allow these beautiful dogs to experience a home life filled with love. All donations are greatly appreciated and are tax deductible. Please visit www.deathrowdogsrescue.com to see some of our amazing dogs who need homes. Do not breed or buy. Make adoption your first option.
All right, and hey, welcome back to Inspired Living Radio. The 3 C's of life: choices, chances, changes. You must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. And as I'm sitting here today, I'm just know that I see you, I feel you, I am you, I love you, I honor you, and just holding all of you right now just in a big digital hug of unconditional love, compassion, empathy. And, thanks for tuning into today's episode where we're talking about the great pandemic of the 21st century. But I'm also calling it the great global pause and reset, because it is what is needed. And, there's just going to be some, great changes ahead, some great moments to really transform. And like I said, the words that I really used were the words of surrender, manifest, create. And I'm going to lead us in just to a quick meditation just to help. Just 5 minutes. Got my singing bowl here. I'm just going to help you move into a place of breath and just put a smile on your face, because that's what we can choose to do in great times of trials and tribulations. It's, as my mentors always were, pounded in my head over the last, 10 plus years of spiritual development, and I've been preparing for this day, is, all of your problems are irrelevant. And I don't mean to sound lack of empathy or integrity, but what he meant by that was all of your problems are irrelevant. How you respond is what makes the difference on how you move forward with your choices, your chances, and the changes that you want to see in your life. And I think that's what we can all do. As Yoda reminds us, do or do not. There is no try. And that's where we're going to start moving. There is no try for us. We're going to do it or we're not going to do it. And, many of the truths that we cling on depend on our point of view. And that's from Yoda, who I love, who is very full of wisdom. So just take a deep breath with me. And after this quick meditation, I'm just going to activate my singing bowl here. I want you just to find wherever you're at, wherever you're listening to my voice right now, whether you're sitting, standing, driving, just take a nice deep breath in, breathing in the energy and the prana of life. Putting a smile on your face, knowing that we can't change what is going on around us. All we can do is be in the magic of the moment, how we respond, what we're taking in, what we're hearing, what we're seeing. I often think of Steve Jobs when he says, do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want a chance to change the world? And as you take another nice deep breath in, this is your time, and this is your chance to make a change with yourself, self-mastery, make a change in our planet, sustainability, coming together, helping your neighbors out, checking in on your family and your friends. Take that another nice deep breath in. Finding yourself in the magic of the moment. Our greatest commodity as humans is time. What are you doing with that time that you have now? How are you surrendering to what is? How are you manifesting your desires and dreams and bringing them into the year of the 4, 2020 in numerology, known as the master builder, the dedicated worker, the focus? How are you creating your desires, and what actions are you taking now to start bringing those creations and that manifestation into your reality, into my reality? That book you've been thinking about writing, that screenplay you've been thinking about doing, the stand-up comedy that you are maybe fearful of doing, the songs, the movies, the poems, the books, the inspiration that you can bring to this planet. Your time is limited. So don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't allow things to come into your head that don't require, if you pay rent or you pay a mortgage, you pay for that space. The space in your brain is very much the same. Don't allow something or someone to be living there rent-free. Take another nice deep breath with me. Being in the magic of the moment, the sound of my voice, breathing in what you want, exhaling what you don't. Breathing in love. Exhaling fear. Breathing in gratitude. Exhaling stress. Find the magic in the moment. Knowing what Andy Warhol reminded us, they always say times change things, but you actually have to change them yourself. Carol Burnett reminds us, only I can change my life. No one can do it for me. So as we face the great pandemic of the 21st century, or what I'm calling the great global pause and reset, I know that you can surrender, you can manifest, and you can create, and you can isolate. Because again, the caterpillar requires a season of isolation in order to become the great butterfly. John F. Kennedy reminds us, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. And I wholeheartedly agree with that the future is bright. It's uncertain right now, but embrace uncertainty. Some of the most beautiful chapters in our lives won't have a title until much later. So embrace the uncertainty of the times. Darkness can drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us. So stay in that energy of love. Stay in that vibration of love. Take another nice deep breath with me. Have a mantra. Have something that you can say daily, in the morning, noon, and night, that helps get you through the day. Take another nice deep breath in with me. Breathing in what you want. Exhaling what you don't. Knowing that every great change is preceded by chaos. You are love. You emanate from pure love. You're connected to this source of love at all times. Dr. Wayne Dyer reminds us of that. Take one more nice, deep, healing, cleansing, peaceful breath. Exhale when you're ready. And so it is. And just keeping the thought, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a beautiful butterfly, or what the masters call the butterfly. So I hope that meditation, that brief meditation, helps. Again, anytime you're feeling anxiety, stress, worry, just take that time to stop and disconnect so that you can have the time to reconnect. I've been saying that for many, many years. It was one of my taglines when I first started out in spiritualism. Like I said, for many of us, we have been preparing for this moment. We've seen this moment. We knew this moment was coming, just we never know exactly how the details are going to roll out. I personally wish it wasn't with great loss of life. Every life matters. No economy or stock market is more valuable than a human life and soul. I hope that we'll remember that when we look back on this in history. History teaches us, Mark Twain talked about this, that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often has a rhythm or a rhyme to it. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. So ask yourself where you want to be when you reflect back through history. What side of history were you on through this great pandemic of the 21st century, this great global pause and reset that we find ourselves in? I know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be on the side of love and light and inspiration and encouragement and positivity and community and connectivity, and making sure that I'm helping people be the light in the darkness and helping people heal, help and inspiring people to manifest their desires and their dreams. What can you do while you're in this isolation? Just some things to think about. I always say, still get up, get dressed, stay with some sort of model that, normal, even if you can't go outside, like here in Washington State, we are locked down, but we are using the words of stay home, stay healthy. And that's what we're doing. We're following what the guidance is given to us because we don't want to be exposed to COVID-19, and we definitely don't want to transmit it to somebody that we know and love. So we're being good stewards and staying at home. But I still get up every morning. I do my meditations. I get dressed. I take a shower and then I get dressed. But also, as you are in this time of isolation, these are, what we call self-leader in times of isolations, or self-mastery, what I talked about in my January 8th podcast about coming together, self-mastery and sustainability. Find a way to exercise. Get outside if you can. Observe social distancing. Of course, my wife and I have been taking walks every night. We're creating a new trail and pattern and doing different things along the way and having fun, kind of like being a kid again. It's been actually quite enjoyable. And I can tell you, boy, I've really noticed a lot more of the birds, the calmness within nature. Nature is sending us a signal, guys. That's all this is. The question is, are humans listening? Are humans paying attention? Are humans going to stop polluting and destroying the planet and move into that place of eco versus that place of ego, respecting all life, respecting nature, respecting the trees, stop pouring plastic into the ocean, stop burning forests down, stop mining and fracking and finding ways that can be sustainability, but it being a process of eco, not ego for greed and power and money. Because in the end, you can't take any of it with you. Take a coffee break or just stand up regularly. I need to do this more. Coffee breaks, like make yourself get up and go make a cup of coffee. Stand up regularly, get some exercise. If you find yourself during this time of isolation at the couch, try not to do that. Sit at a desk, put your monitor at eye level. Don't work slumped on the couch or be distracted a lot by the TV. Watch what you are taking in during this time. The old saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. What can you do as a team for your family and for some of us that are blessed to still have a job, for those that are working from home and have that ability to, great. Have some team conversations. Have a happy hour via online. I do that with my spiritual development group. We just met last night. What I call spiritual takeout. Meditations, motivations, manifestations, and more. Find a way to be productive, motivated, and stay connected. And for those that that don't have a job or don't have the ability to work from home, please be safe. I just yelled out the window to our garbage truck driver, our driver that does our garbage and our recycling. I said, thank you. Even just a thank you and a smile can go a long way right now, because we have people out on the front lines, guys. We want them to be safe. We want them to stay healthy. And we want to, just pay respect and honor our doctors, our nurses, our first responders, our police, our EMS ambulance drivers, our firefighters. We want to keep them in high praise and prayer and vibration, that they don't get sick, because without frontline healthcare workers, we really will have to self-isolate for many months, because you can't fight a war without soldiers. And there are soldiers right now as we're at war with the COVID-19 virus. When you're in this isolation, write a to-do list and what things you get done and cross things off your list. This is something that I've been doing. Share it with a colleague, share it with a team, share it with your family member. Try to, after this is all said and done, look back and say, this is what I accomplished. I know I've got a huge honey-do list of projects I need to do around the house, so I'm going to be focused on that. And then just split your day up into productivity chunks. Make maybe 45 minutes of break, 90 minutes of work, whatever works for you. But find a way to stay productive, motivated, and connected. You like music? Share your Spotify list. Share what others are listening to throughout the day. High fives are virtual, but needed. Call out people who have helped you today. Schedule time for everyone to take a break together. Like I said, we did a break yesterday just through Zoom. We couldn't touch it and be connected to each other, but we were connected to each other via video, energy, laughter, tears, meditation. So there are great ways to really connect during this time, and we have the opportunity through technology to do that. Imagine being in 1918 and not having the ability to know what's going on communications-wise, and be very, very isolated. So I hope that you'll find that great change and transformations are coming, but again, not to be in a place of fear, but in a place of love, and know that, that all great changes are preceded by chaos, and that you'll surrender to this, you'll manifest, and you'll create, knowing that this too shall pass, and you'll remember where you were during the great pandemic of the 21st century, but also the great global pause and reset that we are now facing. Until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate. Most importantly, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. I'll see you for another podcast of Inspired Living Radio. Be safe, stay home, be informed. Much love to all of you. Namaste.